Okay, so we are at Lineage Coffee in Hillcrest with the amazing Craig.
Thank you.
Cool. We are in your your workshop.
Yeah. So storeroom / workshop.
Cool. Would you say that this is where the main operations happen, or would that be upstairs in
I
the
think
shop?
mostly upstairs. Upstairs is where things happen. I mean, the roastery is upstairs, and the headquarters cafe is upstairs, and the office upstairs. But I think Lineage was started in a garage. So I suppose this is
It's quite apt.
quite apt. Yeah.
Cool. I remember those days actually.
You were there for the first roast.
Yeah, I was there for the first roast, first espresso machine being fixed, or coffee machine. Maybe just if you could, for our listeners, introduce yourself quickly, and then we can get into who you are and what you do.
Cool. Must I look into the camera?
You can look wherever you want.
So my name is Craig Charity. I am 39 years old. Finished at Hillcrest High School 2002. I was brought up in Ermelo. Spent most of my childhood fishing and outside and breaking stuff in my dad's workshop. Was a personal trainer for a bit after school, and then I got into coffee and just started hopping from lily pad to lily pad in the coffee game. Eventually, I started a business with a friend and then sold that, and then moved into other areas of coffee. So now I've got 3 shops, and we've got a roastery and a wholesale section, and I consult quite a bit.
Awesome.
I've got 3 kids.
That's cool.
So
that gives you a very 30,000 feet overview. Just so everyone knows, if you hear people screaming and shouting and talking and cell phones going off, it's because we have a service passage next to the workshop.
It's not a crowd.
And it's not a crowd. And we also, you might hear some water running, and that's the sound of the drain pipes outside. So if you're lucky enough to hear that, give us a thumbs up. That's all cool.
Is this live as well?
What do you mean live?
Thumbs up being like on
thumbs
Facebook
up,
Live?
Yeah, if just on your social media or on YouTube or whatever interaction.
I thought it was live, like you would pop up thumbs
Apparently
up.
these are the things we do to encourage engagement with our content. So this is what I'm saying. So, bro, I've had the absolute honor and privilege of being a part of your journey from pretty much day one of your coffee journey, just about.
Yep.
From being there when you fixed your first machine to trying espresso the whole day because we were so excited about this coffee machine that's been fixed, and overdosing, to coffee stands at Midmar and everywhere else in KZN, to coffee shops. So before we get into that, if we get into that, I wanted to ask off the bat, why coffee? I
don't know.
It's a good answer.
Yeah, it's an honest answer. I think it wouldn't be as cheesy to say, like, I didn't choose coffee, coffee chose me. But I think, so I am on the autistic spectrum, and I have ADHD, and I get obsessed about things quite excessively or obsessively, I suppose. And especially I've got a pretty good brain when it comes to fixing things and how things work, and I want to understand how they work and why they work, and if I can make them better. Then I get a hell of a frustrated with things that are inefficient. And so I think everyone likes coffee. Well, majority of people like coffee, and I think it's partly the drug aspect and partly the community aspect. It's like a gateway drug for community, and like I suppose sport would be, or the pub would be, a meal around a table, Christmas time, whatever. Those are all nucleuses for community or bringing people together. And I worked in a gym, and there was a coffee machine downstairs, and I was quite intrigued at them putting it in and how they were changing things. And I don't know what it was. It was the unknown of it. Like, I didn't know why the guy was tasting it and changing and tasting it and changing, and I wanted to know why he was doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I think so. I don't. There was no like. That's probably the point. That and myself and Drew and you playing around with mocha pots are the only two things that I remember. I know that I needed to get. Well, I wanted to get out of selling hours, but I don't think that's what fueled me to do it.
Yeah.
I think that was like, okay, I need to find a way of doing something else, but the allure of coffee quickly became a obsession, which was healthy and unhealthy.
So what do you think it was in the coffee aspect that attracted you?
In what way?
So you were intrigued by this thing that we drink beyond just being a cup of Jacobs or Insta coffee that you put into your cup. Was it the process of the ever-eluding perfect cup of coffee that attracted you, or was it the technical, scientific details behind good coffee? Was it?
I think it was probably. It wasn't the search for a perfect cup of coffee. I mean, I think making a cup of coffee is almost more fun than drinking it.
Mm.
And sometimes I would just make coffee and not drink it. I just wanted to make it. I think I don't know, if I was having a cocktail at a coffee shop in Johannesburg called Father Coffee, and the mixologist there, Fabiana, she's like brilliant, and she was making, I think, something called something Queen's Park Hotel cocktail, and she is studying her masters in like hot Bushman rock paintings.
Okay.
And I was like, anything like that, so whether it's coffee or that, anything that's like, wow, tell me about that. It's like I want to know more. So
Okay.
I think it was more the desire to figure it out more than I suppose the quest of it more than anything else.
Okay. So would you say you figured coffee out?
Cheap as no. I think when you're in the beginning, you're arrogant and you sort of, with your the picture or the landscape that you can see around you, you can gauge yourself progressing and getting better, and you look back and you go, oh wow, I've come this far. But the further and further you get away from where you started, every valley you go through kind of looks like the next valley.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine if you go, you can notice your difference change if you're 10 meters from 0 meters, and you can maybe notice it from 20 meters to 0 meters. But the difference between 100 meters, 200 meters, or 150 kilometers, 120 kilometers, if you had to try and look back, you probably wouldn't look like you've moved much.
Yeah.
So it's that whole thing. And the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah.
And I think your understanding of things changes as things are proven or disproven. Things are dogmatic. Like, hey, you have espresso is whatever, let's say 14 grams of double espresso is 14 grams of coffee running at a rate of 1 mil per second at 9 bars. And like, that's what it is. And that's what a good espresso tastes like. And you then have people experimenting with different dosages and different waters and different roast profiles and fermenting of coffee or processing, and then someone goes, well, that is a 20-gram shot of coffee and it was brewed in 18 seconds and it tastes better. And then you're like, cool, well, that's true then. And then you have another one that was different and that it tasted better than that one, but it contradicts each other. And you go like, oh, maybe that's true then.
So I was at a coffee shop the other day where he was dosing, I was watching him, he was dosing 17 grams of coffee. And I really enjoyed it. So it would, I think that they've found out the formula that works, or a formula that works for them, for their instance of being, for their environment, for what they're trying to do. So coffee is quite variable. It's not this objective, like there's no one way of doing it. Is that right?
I think there are certain, 17 grams of coffee, there's an optimal, for that coffee, there's an optimal amount you can extract out of it. The more coffee you've got, the bigger room for error you've got. For larger volume drinks, like if you're going to be serving a 250 or 350 or 500 ml drink, like you realistically would need more of your ingredients to bring flavor out. Okay. But it's always easier to brew less coffee because there's a small room for error. It's like a golf swing. The further you need to go, if you 10 degrees off, 10 degrees off at 200 meters is very different.
Okay.
But in terms of like, hey, it's all objective, like, I think there's a danger in that people will go, it's just an art, or it's just it's in the flair, it's in the this. But realistically, there's science behind it.
Yeah.
There's certain compounds that don't taste good, and those compounds come out at certain temperatures and extract at certain rates. So,
that's good. It's cool. So it's not just like there are hard and fast rules, but there also are no hard and fast rules because there's room to experiment and try things. But yet you
it's
can't.
The whole, like, I don't know.
You can't.
It's the whole, like, is this is it a circle or is it a square thing? It's like, well,
depends how you look at it.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Or is it a funnel?
Maybe it's a funnel. So Lineage.
You want to drink your? I'm gonna look like an alcoholic if you don't drink yours.
Sorry, I'm too in it. We are drinking. What are we drinking here? Friday India Pale Ale.
Yeah.
From And Union.
Yep.
It's very nice, even though
it's
Wednesday.
It's fine.
So, if you look at the Lineage logo, it says established in 2012.
Yeah.
Before we get to 2012, let's talk from 2010-ish, before it was established in 2012. Can you tell us a little bit of the journey from being in Gary's garage to opening your first shop, or actually, from there to Lineage being established?
Yeah, I think maybe it was 2009. I'm not quite. Geez, it was actually probably earlier.
It was actually earlier because I got married in 2010, and you guys had been open for a while.
Yeah,
not as Lineage though.
Well, so I think I probably started getting obsessed in coffee in, I don't know, 2008-ish, somewhere around there. And I remember Wendy, who was my wife at the time, she bought me a coffee machine, and I got quite into it. It was a Cambrook, and then I got given a broken one, and then I ended up fixing it and learning about what the components were. So I didn't know what a solenoid was. I didn't know what a pump was. I knew what a pump did, but I didn't know what a vibratory pump was. And with Google, just like learned how to do that.
So in that process of learning and stripping that machine, because that was the Lapavani Professional, wasn't it? The
It was the Vega Mini Nova that I gave Gary.
So in that process, what came alive inside of you during that?
It's hard to explain to someone who doesn't. Like when obsession sounds like such a bad word.
No, it's not.
I suppose like fanatic in a way. When something grabs hold of my attention and it is intriguing enough, it's almost all I can think about. So like one of the benefits and curses of being on the spectrum of ADHD or autism is a very, very low dopamine level in your brain. So when your brain does latch onto something that it's giving it satisfaction, it holds on so tightly. And I mean, your brain's a drug addict, really. So it literally, that was feeding me so much dopamine. As I was figuring new things out, my brain was obviously addicted to this new thing that there was like, oh, there's more, oh, and there's more, and there's more. So I ended up fixing that machine, and then I remember I was praying, and I felt, sensed, assumed, whatever word that doesn't sound
hyper-religious.
Hyper-religious. Fill in blank. God say, geez, Craig, you've done a good job, but if I was you, I'd give it to Gary. So I gave it to Gary. And
gave the machine to Gary.
Yeah. No, I gave it to Gary. And I remember setting it up on his counter, and Haley, his wife, was there. I wrote him a note and said, listen, I know you've been wanting a machine like this for ages. I really want you to have it. And by giving it to him, he first of all rejected it, like I think most people would. He said hey, we should start a coffee company. And then he came up with the name Go Coffee, and he was in marketing and designed a logo. And then we started this mobile coffee company. We did our first little mobile coffee thing at Hillside Church, and then Gary was the one person he explained to I saw in him something that he would say, someone would phone him and say, hey, we've got a event coming up for 1,000 people. We've heard you guys do mobile coffee. Can you do it? And at that point, we had a little one-group machine, and we could do 40 coffees an hour. And it was an event that was a couple of thousand. And Gary was like, yeah, we do mobile coffee. And it was between 2,000 and 3,000 people. It was ridiculous. And he was like, yeah, no problem. What's it? It's 6 months' time. Perfect. No issues. Yeah. What we'll do is we'll put 3 bar counters or 4 coffee machines around and this baristas. And he hung up the phone and he said, cool, Craig, we've got 6 months and we've got to have 4 machines and bar counters and baristas. And at this point, I just given him the machine. We were still figuring out how to make coffee. So, from that, I was we borrowed money from his folks and then bought another broken machine. And then I used my knowledge from the first one to sort of fix the second one. Well, the second one was a big one with 3-phase and all that. And then I had to Google that and learn about, I thought I figured machines out the first time, and it was different. And then we did events with that, and then bought another one, and then I had to fix that one, and then bought another one. And in the process of this, I had obviously learned how to make coffee, and started, went into, we entered a coffee competition then. And then yeah, and when I entered the machine, into the competition, I was still like spooning froth on a drink for a cappuccino. Like I didn't know there was any
sacrilege.
I didn't know there was any other way. And I saw these guys doing like latte art, and I was like, what is that? So before I competed, I sort of learned a little bit more by watching and tried to do something. But I remember chatting to a judge there, and I was showing him pictures of the machines that I'd rebuilt. And he said, oh, so you're a coffee machine technician. And being the person who, I think I'd had Emily, my first child by then, and I was like, obviously needing money, I'm like, yep, I'm a coffee machine technician. And he's like, cool, we've got a new store, a new Mug and Bean opening up. Can you install it for us? And you understand three-phase? And I was like, yep, completely. And yeah, committed to it. Went home, got someone to design a logo, called myself the Coffee Authority because it sounded like it was like established. And researched three-phase and got an invoice book printed and did the job and turned to page, 96 or whatever it was, and invoiced them and got paid. And then then word went around that like there's a new coffee company in Durban. And then Woolworths heard about the new coffee company, and they phoned me and said, is this the Coffee Authority? And I was like, yeah, this is Craig. I own the company. We do work for famous brands, which was one Mug and Bean.
Well, you've got to claim it, right?
Yeah, and they said, well, yeah, do you guys do a bit of plumbing? And sold a couple of pipes. We need to replace the filters in a couple of our stores. And I was like, yeah, no problem. Do it all the time. And then I bought stuff, practiced how to do that. Hired a plumber the first time. Got to the store after hours, and the plumber was there, and I was like, how much is a call out? Like $400, whatever. So I was like, 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool, just wait there. And did the job, got paid. And then from there, sort of the technical side, yeah, then I was personal training, doing technical and mobile coffee events. Yeah.
Sure. So you were that's leading up to opening a Lineage, and that was super intense. It was busy. And then during that time, you also dropped the work you were doing as a personal trainer?
Yeah. So a friend of mine, I'll join you with that. A friend of mine, a client, yeah, he's a friend, but he was a client of mine at the time, personal training client. He traveled a lot, and he asked me. It was actually funny. I didn't think about it until now, but he would always speak about this place in London called Monmouth Coffee. It's in the Borough Market, and he said, "Listen, Craig, you should go to London, see what this is, and try and replicate it here." And I couldn't afford to do that. I mean, number one, I was charging hours, and I had a child and responsibilities. So I politely said, no, yeah, definitely I'll go, because I didn't want him to feel bad that I really couldn't afford to. And then after a couple of weeks of asking, or months, I don't know what it was, he said, have you gone yet? And I was like, no, you know what, actually, I can't afford to. I'd love to, and I will do one day, but it's just out of my reach for now. He's like, rubbish, man, I'll buy you a ticket. So awesome. So I think I realized just now, I was like generosity started coffee the first time and the second time. Someone else's generosity to me. So then I was walking around London, and I was literally there for 5 days. And I remember at that point, that's when it clicked in my head, that I was like, hey, I'm in another country, walking around, scouting coffee stuff. Like, I'm in the coffee industry.
That's awesome. And
then I bought one of those barista hats, like the Peaky Blinder things. And I started wearing that. And whenever I worked, I'd put that hat on because like that was my persona. I was like, hey, I'm in the coffee industry.
That's awesome. So you went to London, you checked this place out. Did you go on your own or did you go with Gary? I don't remember.
No, Gary lived there already.
Oh, okay, you already
Yeah,
lived.
yeah.
No,
So I went to my own.
Oh, yes. Okay.
He was in Guildford, yeah.
Okay. So let's fast forward. You entered the World Barista Champion. Well, you won South African Champion Barista.
Yeah, so I entered a lot of times before that. I sort of kept working my way down. I don't know how many times I competed.
Many.
4, 5, 6,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I entered every year. So if there was 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, yeah.
Okay.
So, and then, 2013 was the year that that's when I've won regionals and then I won nationals.
Okay.
So I think I competed at nationals twice before that, but didn't win.
Okay. So you won those championships. Then you went to Worlds and represented South Africa there.
Yeah.
That was...
I went to Burundi first in Africa, and then I got disqualified for going over time.
Okay. Oh, yes, I remember that, yes.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So
And that was necessary fun, in hindsight.
Why would you say that?
I don't know. Failure is always more important than success. Success is not a very good teacher.
So would you say you failed more than what you have succeeded?
Well, not really, because then you would be further back than when you started. So I think if you are further in front than what you were, you succeeded more than what you failed. Or maybe the times of succeeding have made bigger leaps forward than the steps back of failure, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, everything has been I think I'm a risk taker by design, but by composition. I can psych myself up and believe that I can do things that I can't, and like fool myself to believe them, and not that I go into things green and foolish like unicorns and rainbows and hope that it all goes well. Like I do a lot of hard work and a lot of research, but I really do have like illusions of grandeur. It's like, well, it can't be that hard. I mean, how hard can that be? And realistically, it isn't as hard as you think, but it's generally a lot harder than you thought initially.
Yeah.
So yes, I failed opening a shop at Watercrest, lost lots of money there. I've taken loans out to buy things, had to pay that back. That didn't work. I've bought machines to try to fix them to sell them and then lost money. I've hired staff that I thought I could train in a certain way, and I mean, there's always, And I think you just got to, as an entrepreneur, you just got to get used to failure. It's part of what you do. I remember there was an interview with Elon Musk, and he was being interviewed by some young entrepreneur, I don't know, magazine, and they said, Elon, have you got any encouragement for young entrepreneurs? And he said, yes, I do. If you need encouragement, don't become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's hard.
So, there's got to be something, something deeper than happiness or safety or joy or whatever has to fuel you. You can't survive on, like, when you are really in a shit place, when things haven't gone well over and over and over again, and you are not happy, and you haven't succeeded, and you are not fulfilled, and you are not healthy or have slept well, and you are very stressed, like, you need a very good reason to carry on.
So what would you say that reason for you has been?
Yeah, I think I don't know if I think I believed in what I was trying to create, which was a expression of specialty coffee in South Africa. But I think I naturally, as a person, people are drawn to me. And I think they're drawn to the quirkiness, obsessiveness, the character. If someone is like different to other people, you're probably drawn to that person. If they're very, very different, you probably like repel the person. But I'm probably like medium psycho. And yeah, I don't like failing. Like, I accept failure, but I really battle giving up. Like, really, really battle giving up. Sometimes I should have given up a lot earlier than I have. Like, Sharp and Watercrest, I should have called it way before then. But I was like, nope, I will not let this fail. So I've learned wisdom in that as well. But yeah, you got to, I don't know. Yeah, there was a reason I was doing something, and I don't know, 1,000 cuts later, you've got to still stick to that reason.
That's really, it's really good advice. That's and really good insight into, the reason why we do things, because it needs to be, I think as entrepreneurs as well, it needs to be beyond just or business owners, beyond just the money or the lack of it at the end, but there's something much deeper that drives us, much deeper that keeps us going. And it's good. It's good.
So I think also, and I don't mean this to sound pessimistic, but I've also seen a lot of people that were unhappy with their day jobs, whether it was from a pay point of view or their boss or co-workers or a fulfillment thing, where they've decided, no, they're going to go on their own. Like, I don't think everyone has the capability to make a living on their own, like being able to get enough money to survive. And I've seen a lot of people fail, and I think a lot of people think they're entrepreneurs. What do you think the difference between what do you think the difference between an entrepreneur and someone who's self-employed is?
I would say... And
how many times have you been asked a question on this?
I've actually had this discussion a few weeks ago, very briefly, but I would say someone who's self-employed is someone who bills out hourly and makes enough money to cover the expenses every month from month to month. I would say there's a step in between in my opinion, I would say there's a step in between self-employed and an entrepreneur, and that would be a business owner, which I will classify myself as. I own a business. I don't know if I'm necessarily entrepreneurial where I own, well, I don't own multiple businesses and multiple income streams. I don't know at this stage if I am able to make money out of really different things.
Me neither, don't worry.
But that's what I think.
Well, I don't know if I can either. We'll have this conversation.
Maybe. I think maybe by default I think I'm not qualified. But I wouldn't say, I would say entrepreneurial is very different to self-employed. I think you can become entrepreneurial by, I don't know, I'm just waffling now, but having multiple businesses maybe. And I'm not entirely sure on the answer.
Yeah, me neither.
That's my thinking.
Yeah, I've thought about it a lot. I think I agree with you when that the self-employed is someone who's able to manage something, who's like got, I have this company and I have these employees and I know, well, I'm doing my best to grow this and steward this and take care of this and making a living out of that. I think maybe an entrepreneur is someone who's always unsatisfied, who sees opportunity in everything. And I don't know.
Maybe. I do think that in today's age, entrepreneur is a buzzword. And it's highly worshipped in a way. I think most people who proclaim to be entrepreneurs aren't entrepreneurs. They're just business owners or chance takers. I think an entrepreneur maybe has a track record behind them of successful businesses that run on their own with minimal input maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just sharing my thoughts.
Yeah.
So coming back to business ownership, you started Lineage in 2012.
Yeah.
You started in Strata, right? You opened a little shop in Strata?
Yeah. So I met with the owner there and I struck a deal that I would own the coffee side of Strata.
Okay.
And then I would build them the coffee that I'd made and give them a portion of that, yeah.
Okay. And then you opened...
well, then I opened the shop next to... Had I? No. So then I opened Watercrest.
Okay.
In the middle of the aisle.
Mm-hmm.
And then I opened the shop next to the Strata one and put the roastery in there. So by that time, I got bored of fixing machines and I opened a coffee business, and then I started technical, and then I got bored of, I didn't get bored of that, but it's like then whenever I was competing, there were people speaking about, hey, I roasted the beans like this and I did this, and when I was competing, I would say, hey, I got beans from there and I got beans from there and this is what it tastes like. So there was like a area of coffee that I hadn't explored yet. So then I sold the mobile coffee company and I bought a coffee roaster, and then I fixed that and learned how to fix roasters. And then I started roasting coffee, and the year that I won is actually the year that I had roasted my own coffee.
That's awesome.
So I did straight up bar counter, that plus Watercrest. Then I opened the roastery, which was in my garage when you were there.
I remember the little, was it, like a 200 gram?
No, it was a 2 kilogram. It was a Diedrich, a Diedrich IR. I think it was a Diedrich 4, R5. I don't know.
I remember the first roast coming out of there on that baking tray with a fan. The photo pops up every now and again on social.
It's pretty cool.
So awesome.
Yeah. So
awesome.
And then so when my hate to use this word, but when the season with Stretta ended, my big dream was always to have because I'd been obsessed about this thing called coffee, and there was people, and there was roastery, and there was a workshop and a cafe, and I just loved the whole idea that there was this, I mean, they use the term seed to cup now, but that there was this like holistic view of like, this is where everything comes from. It's like going to a place, I suppose, like Bubble and Durban, or a place that's got a farm that grows the stuff and where you process it and then you eat it. Yeah, so that was my dream. I always had that in my head. So when I moved out of Stretta, I rented a place in Boulders Way and I got a bigger roaster and created this like full page spread of what I could showcase to people in coffee.
Then you were there for a couple of years. You closed down Watercrest.
Yeah.
And then you opened the site up in Notties.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah. And then you moved during lockdown, which was, as with everyone else, was pretty brutal.
Well, that was a little bit before. Often I've, I launched that one, then I launched Westfall. I've often had launched shops because I think when a business, like, you're always going to get opportunities, especially if you're good at what you do. Like, someone's always going to come to you, or you always go to a place and go, hey, this could work there. But from my experience in business, I don't have a high turnover in staff. I pay guys really well, and I try to pay them as well as I can, and I treat them with as much respect as I treat myself, probably more. Like my business, we get more praise about Lineage culture and stuff than we do get about our coffee.
So what do you think? And that's something I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
Because I just love the staff dynamic here.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I've been somewhat, maybe more recently, way more distance, but I know some of the guys.
Yeah.
And it feels like a family. So what would you say, what has been the key thing for you in terms of staff culture? Because I'm a very big, I don't know what the word is. I'm really big on staff culture, and for me it's really
culture,
important.
yeah.
So what would you say has been really key in building an incredible staff culture?
So this leads into where I was going with the other one, is that I don't know, I'm like hyper observant, and I think one of the, I don't know, it is like one of the quirks of being on the autism spectrum is you don't really you're a verbal person living in a visual world where like most communication is non-verbal, and is in body posture and facial expression and tone of voice and all those things. So I become pretty good at reading. I've had to read people consciously, and
because you've had to learn that, right?
Yeah, a lot of I don't. So I'm not masking now. This is me. I don't generally have a Sometimes I am happy, but a lot of the time you see me, I'm I might feel the thing inside, but it doesn't necessarily come through my face where it would naturally do to other people. And changing my tone of voice, it's generally conscious, and with my brain thinks a lot about a lot of things. So I've got to I try really hard on medication to focus on anything. Like where I was going with the sentence
Yes.
a minute ago.
You're doing way better than what I am.
So I observe people a lot, and I watch like very subtle things, like I don't know, facial expressions and body language, and like I'm a very, very genuine person. When you're genuine doesn't mean you're necessarily nice. I do think I am a nice guy, but being genuine, I think, is just like what you see is what you get. Like I don't. Yeah, I cannot do something that I do not believe in. Like, and I will not say something I don't mean.
Okay.
If you ask me a question, do I look good in this? I'll be like, if I believe no, I'm like, no, you don't. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's like I'm the
Some
guy.
would call that candor.
Yeah, I was like, yes, you have something in your teeth. There is a burger in your nose. Like your zip is down.
Yeah.
To anyone, anywhere.
So, would you say that a key to building really good, healthy staff culture is being brutally honest, but with huge amounts of kindness?
Well, let me bring myself back to this. So, from what I've observed from a fairly, I suppose, clinical side, is that the power play. Like when I look at people, like I see the power play quite funny. Like for me, it's like weird, but when I've noticed people having aspirations and like ranking up in like some people becoming dominant in different areas, and it's probably like very animalistic in terms of like what you'd observe in the animal kingdom. What I have done is when there's been two people, or when there's been a leader that's been a very good leader for a long time, and someone else, and generally leaders don't. It's like a bell curve. Like I don't think you do this and you continue to grow. Like if you do, it's quite amazing. And at that point, I think that person should probably like they've got the capacity to start something on their own.
Yeah.
But often I find a leader does that and then they start to plateau. But then if this person starts over here, they end up accelerating at a higher rate than what the leader is. And I found unhelpful dynamics where there was a bit of power play in Lineage. And not that that's bad, because that's helpful sparring if you can see it from a mature point of view. But I did realize that for the culture to survive, that wasn't going to work well. Because generally, I think if you look at it like an animal kingdom, when two alphas fight against each other, one alpha has to leave. So what I did is I waited for that to, and then at that point, when there was an opportunity for a shop, I moved one of those people, the person who I best saw fit, I offered them a position there of leadership or of greater leadership. And that's why I started that's why I started Nottingham Road. Because if I didn't, I had planned to find one of those people a job somewhere else and negotiate a higher pay for them, because I just knew that would affect the culture badly.
Yeah.
And
amazing.
the same thing happened with Westfall. Like, and sometimes it's not evident on the surface, but I can definitely read. Like, I can see the dynamics changing, and like even though I don't use many expressions, I can definitely notice them. And yeah, so in terms of like healthy staff culture,
That's awesome.
I think the way that I run my company is obviously very different ways. The way that I have ran Lineage is more from a shepherding, like fathering role than because not everything is my it is my responsibility. Not everything is my duty. Or so I had a conversation with one of my staff yesterday. We had like a hour-long chat about our lives and what he was going through, and I would share, but what I was going through, because I think in order for there to be vulnerability is something both-sided. Like a space is only vulnerable when I think both people have contributed to that.
Completely.
It's like, here are my cards, and if one person goes, here's my cards, you go, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk about our cards.
Yeah.
And in chatting to him, I said, because I had, there was that dynamic happening again. And I said, okay, well, so what I'm proposing we do, and this will give you excitement, is to move you to this position here, which is a different area, a different arm of Lineage. And it'll give you focus and something new and something exciting to work on. And that person who was like under them would give them my word, there's, I've got more responsibility. It's like taking a tree that is like overshadowing other trees, and you don't cut it down, but you move that tree to like a bigger pot, and then allows other trees to grow. So I said, that's what I'm going to do. And he said, or who do you think will, and I explained the whole tree thing to him, and he said, who do you think will rise to what? And I was like, I don't know. Let's see.
Create the space.
Yeah, I was like, I assume based on the skill sets of those people and having known them for 5-10 years, like I assume that's who's going to like rise to whatever occasion, but realistically, I don't know. And I'm happy to actually just wait and see.
That's awesome.
I've often used the analogy of starting Lineage as writing a book. Like I originally had this idea for a book, and I started the book, and I was the sole author for this book for quite a number of years. And people say they're self-made. Like, no one is self-made. Like, because that implies that no one has helped you.
Yeah.
Which implies that you were raised on a planet with no one else there, and you somehow figured all this out, and then customers arrived and you somehow knew what to do. Like, you are not self-made. Your parents made you, your friends made you, your hardships made you. Like, someone invested in you, whether it was like encouragement or whether it was money, or like that made you. So it's bullshit that.
Yeah.
Like,
or even just the culture you're in.
Yeah, like
or the environment you're in.
Like, you're self-made. I'm like,
yeah.
fuck, you're not self-made. You're crazy.
Yeah.
Nice try.
Yeah.
It's arrogance.
Yeah.
But the that I was initially the original author, and because I think when you birth something, you're quite protective of it, because you've had this. I mean, you start this thing and people see like, oh wow, that, but they don't know that thing's been brewing in you for years. And with someone who's obsessive, I mean, I would literally go to sleep and dream about coffee machines, dream about taking them apart, dream about making them. I think a couple of months into playing around with the machine, I was doing technical drawings of a machine that I wanted to make. And I would take it to some arrogant coffee person in Durban, and he'd be like, no, you mustn't do that. Just buy this coffee. It's better. You never need to do it. The people have done it before. And I get like so bummed with them. I was like, no, but can you not see it's different? I was like, I don't do different. Keep it to original. Anyway. But eventually, as I started employing people and I started working with them, obviously quite closely, I started trusting them, and then I started giving them the ability to author certain chapters or paragraphs. And being always taking on more than I can chew, I started getting involved in lots of other things. And a couple of years later, like I was still authoring it, but I looked at Lineage. This was at the old shop, and I was like, I didn't really write this. Like
That's
there
awesome.
were elements that I'd written, like they were definitely there, and there was still the culture was still similar, but there's definitely elements that I didn't necessarily wholeheartedly agree with, or would want to have changed, or and yeah, I was like, but it's actually good, it works, and people are enjoying it, and there's life there, and I let that roll. And then all of a sudden, as I started looking at this thing, like as the months went by, I started seeing that the people that worked at Lineage, and even the customers that made it their home, and I really mean like it was like some, if you haven't been a part of Lineage for a long time or haven't come here, you won't understand. But like you get here at 6 o'clock in the morning, and there'll be Gavin will be here with Rosie and Aurora will be with Togozo behind the bar counter. It's like he is her favorite person, and he's like trying to make coffee while holding her because she won't let go of him. And he's making coffee one-handed, and by that time Rosie's in the back helping Fani pack coffee at like 6:30, and Fani's paying her in coffee beans. And then another customer walks in, and then their kids will run to that person, sit at that desk, and then someone comes in, and then they say, listen, can I use your office for a sec? Yeah, and then they're in my office for like 5 hours. Or so there's this, as I started I've obviously had to trim it. I mean, there's definitely been times when there's been things that have cropped up that I'm like, okay, like I don't mind things growing in a way that I'm happy with things growing in an area that I didn't expect, and not sure if I'm quite okay with.
Yeah.
But there's definite areas where it's like, no, that's not good, and
Okay.
I'll prune that.
It's like growing a garden. You want to create space for plants to grow. You want to create space for this to thrive, but you also need to curate that space to a degree, and remove the harmful parts. And
you as a gardener, you control the soil. That is the only thing you control.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the soil and the water.
Yeah.
Like you cannot make that plant grow.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And you cannot.
You just create the environment for it.
Yeah, and you protect that environment.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been many staff in Lineage, but there have been some cancerous people, and I mean, I say that not like they are not bad people, like they are not. If I was born them, raised them, if I was them eating their food and going to their school and everything, like would I be different? Probably not. Yeah. So I'm not saying that like they're a horrible person, but in terms of the way that that person and the dynamic, it was definitely cancerous. Like that would impact other cells.
Yeah. It wasn't good for the environment you were trying to curate.
Yeah, well, the culture started going down. Yeah. And so then I had to deal with that. And I think over the years, I've learned to deal with that quicker.
That's awesome.
And with maybe more... Yeah, originally I think I try to make sure everyone is okay. But as the team has grown and I see that actually the majority is important, and if that person is affecting the lives of others, or is going to affect the lives of others, like I need to protect them. I can't.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Really, really.
That's
awesome.
been difficult for my personality.
I can't imagine it being easy. I'd probably struggle with that too. Well,
I'm brutally honest, so it's not really. I mean, I probably explained it to them exactly the way I explained it to you now,
Yeah.
which doesn't go down well.
But it's still not fun.
No, but I want them to change. I really want them to change.
Yeah.
But like I've had people steal. Like I've had lots of people steal, and if you steal, you get fired.
Yeah.
And you're not a bad person because you're stealing.
Yeah.
Like you're not a like everyone steals. Like I would steal. Someone will pay like let's say I don't know R1,000 cash for a coffee machine repair. I might decide not to put that through the bank and not to claim the VAT back on that. Also not to charge VAT on it. That's stealing. So everyone's got their own
Their own thing.
yeah, everyone's got their own line that they think like this is good, that's bad.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make them bad, it just means you can't be here anymore. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's not good for what we're creating here.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, Craig, we could keep going very easily, and maybe we should. Maybe we should do a round 2 sometime. I'm aware of the time and our commitments and the time of the listeners. So thank you so much for sharing and being so open and honest, and
Always.
yeah, appreciate you. And
I
I've
hope
just
I can help.
No.
Yeah, I don't know what your viewers are like, but I hope that I think parables are some of the most powerful stories.
Yeah, big time.
So I hope.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing your stories, bro. Thank
Yeah.
you, and maybe we'll do story time again. We'll do another round 2 sometime down the line.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah,
It's
thanks,
a pleasure.
guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.